Yeah! November coming, Georgia 11. If you're tired of the same old politics, this one right here for you. Chris Harden! Vote Chris Harden! Put the people first. Working class families know the struggle hurts. Not the politics, not the party games. Just real solutions that'll make a real change. Vote Chris Harden, let your voice be heard. Common sense leadership, every single word. From the small town roads to the city lights. Chris Harden, fighting for our rights. Yeah.
Man, that song gets me fired up every time. Good morning. Welcome to the Harden Holler. It's your boy, Big Country. Let me holler at you. We've got an amazing show for today. I've actually got a special guest. And if you've been to my town halls, you always hear me drop his name, even though in the town halls I've been saying it wrong. But I am so excited to have this guest today. It's my good friend, Claude Gadabuke. Did I get it right that time?
Yeah, yes, you did. Good to see you,
Yeah.
Big Country.
My man. So
Yeah.
Claude and I went to one of his talks that you were doing, and I believe it was Bartow County,
Yeah.
on your book promotion tour, and we got to talking afterwards, and then we exchanged numbers, and ever since, I mean, it's been what, 7-8 months since we've connected.
About almost a year now. Yeah.
And anytime one of the articles comes up or something in the news, I'm always shooting it to him, and he's shooting it to me, so we can keep up on it. But I'm telling you, Claude, every time I'm in the town halls, I'm like, I'm going to have this guy on. He's going to talk to us about this. He's going to talk to us, and we finally made it happen this morning. So, man, I appreciate you showing up and doing this. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm fired up for that song. That song got me fired up, to get it started. But I'm doing well, and I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation. We do a lot of this exchange, and when we exchange, we call it a theory, but it's actually fact. It's just a lot of people are unaware of these things, and hopefully, with this platform and the information that keeps coming out, we'll continue to provide the information so that people are informed and they know what's actually happening and connect the dots.
We're going to learn them today. We're going to learn them something today.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Man, we're doing good. We got the kids in school and going to kindergarten and rocking and rolling, and now we got the campaign is ramping up, and we've got a lot of momentum going. We're getting really, really excited.
Yes. Congratulations congratulations on kindergarten, and definitely I'm looking forward to November, and I'm looking forward especially to post-November with Congressman Harden in Washington, fighting the good fight and fighting for the people. So if you haven't yet thought about it, show up in November or vote early and vote for Big Country Chris Harden for Georgia Congressional District 11.
Oh, Claude, thank you, buddy. Hey, let's go ahead and jump in this real quick, because I don't want to keep you too long, and we got a lot to talk about. So, but I want to let everybody to understand your story, and I kind of don't want to just give it away, but I'm going to go do it this way. You are the survivor of the Rwanda genocide, and explain everybody what that was.
Yeah, I'm gonna just summarize it because the story can go on for days. The short of the story is Rwanda, first of all, is a really small country in Central East Africa, and it is a very densely populated country. The country itself is made up of 3 different ethnic groups, Hutus, Twas, and Tutsis. And it is landlocked, does not have access to sea, and it also doesn't have a lot of natural resources, but it's surrounded by countries who either have access to sea or have a lot of natural resources, especially the Congo. So Rwanda is in a very strategic location in terms of the east to west, connecting the two sides of the west to the west of Rwanda is the Congo, and Congo, especially Eastern Congo, connects to the sea by the Indian Sea, the Indian Ocean, which is east. So Rwanda is like a transit point. But how does this all connect to us here? How does it connect to District
Yeah.
11 in Georgia? And how does what actually happened with me during the Rwandan genocide? So I was a kid going to school uh, about I was in the fifth grade, and I remember one lunch break. I went to lunch, and when I came back, there was all of these. I saw all of these military activities. There were trucks that were moving. There were all these armored vehicles and things like that. And in Rwanda, when I was growing up, before that, I had never seen a soldier dressed for combat. I had actually never seen weapons like with my real eyes, other than seeing them in movies. The military dressed like they had these tan suits, short sleeves and long tan pants that looked like Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
The policemen carried batons. I had never seen guns. I had
Now,
never
now,
seen
Claude, are these local militias, or is this like foreign countries coming in?
this. What I'm describing, it was the local military. Now, what was happening when I saw this military action? It was the Rwandan military going to the front line to fight an invasion that came from Uganda, which is
Gotcha.
north of Rwanda.
Yeah.
Now, the this war that started when I was in the fifth grade, went on for 4 years. During this war, there were a lot of major atrocities, and it was basically, just to keep it simple for the audience, there was a group of exiled Rwandans who were in Uganda, who were part of the Ugandan military, who then invaded Rwanda. Their leader, Paul Kagame, was actually in training here in the US at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas when the invasion started. 3 days later, he was called down, he went down, and he went to lead that war. So it was a foreign invasion because Paul Kagame, actually, him being in the US, he was in the US as a Ugandan soldier because he had, I guess he had acquired citizenship in Uganda, or um, somehow he, through fighting another militia war and taking over Uganda with the current Ugandan president, he became part of the Ugandan military. He was sent here to the US for training, then came back to Rwanda to lead this invasion and rebellion. And it went on for years. There were major, horrible atrocities during this time. As a kid, going to school at times, because of the chaos that came with this war, there were times with the rioting and things like that, that when we went to school, we weren't sure that we would make it back home. Now, fast forward 4 years into this war, there was a specific event. There was an assassination of Rwanda's president. And like I said, before that, there had been massacres. More than 10% of Rwanda, so one in 10 people, actually 1 in 8 Rwandans was actually displaced by this war, that 4-year war. So
Mm.
people
Yeah.
were refugees inside of their own countries, and people who are old enough to remember, for example, Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
When Hurricane Katrina hit, and sometimes when some of these natural disaster hit, people evacuate and they go to other places, they go to other states and things like that. Rwanda was full of people like that. Over a
Right.
million people in a country of 8 million was displaced. That's like in America, if you were to take more than 40 million Americans and just displace them one time,
Right.
and especially take them to one city, any city. um Now imagine what the resources would be like in that city. It's almost like trying to get toilet paper during COVID.
Right.
If you go to anything, grocery store or anything, for us down in the south, we know, like on snow days, that's what the stores look like. Everything
Yeah.
is bare, everything is off the shelves and things like that. So Rwanda was like that. And so this was again what had happened before this event, the assassination of Rwanda's president, who had signed a peace deal with these rebels, or this invading army called the RPF, led by Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame is now Rwanda's president. They ended up winning that war. So the president was assassinated along with the Burundian president and a bunch of other people on the plane. That's the event that set off the genocide. And I'll fast forward real quickly. This is when, for me, it became even more direct. I had seen people displaced, I had seen people suffering from war and these atrocities. But then the same night of the shooting, and I heard the sounds of the missiles, and we were used to hearing gunfire and explosions and things like that because it had just become that insecure over
Yeah.
those 4 years of the war. But this night, on April 6, 1994, these two missiles were so loud, so much louder than the usual gunfire and explosions that we were used to hearing. And before that time, it was so bad, the insecurity was so bad that we would put furniture in the windows so that if someone threw a grenade through the window, that it would bounce back out. And
Uh,
as a kid, as a young teen at the time, it would have been cheaper for me to buy a grenade than it would have been for me to get a loaf of bread or a bottle of soda. And so I just want to go, paint the picture of
yeah.
how bad things were before even this assassination of the president. Then the president was assassinated, and instead of total chaos, we started hearing shells. There were bombs, just explosions from one side of the city going over our heads and dropping on the other end.
Mm.
Um, and then right during that time, also the during that war, there was a lot of polarization that grew, and existing ethnic tensions, especially between the Hutus and Tutsis, came up during that war. And so now, the next day, extremist Hutu militias, these were local militias, started going from house to house hunting for Tutsis. By the way, the rebel group that was committing all these atrocities prior to the genocide was predominantly Tutsi, and I don't expect the audience to necessarily be able to differentiate, because it's hard even with Rwandans to differentiate between a Hutu and a Tutsi. But
Right.
on one side was one group, on the other side was the other, um, all committing these atrocities, and then specifically starting right after the shooting of the plane, that is really what triggered what is known as the Rwandan genocide, where these militias went to house hunting for Tutsis and killing them mostly with hand weapons, machetes, and clubs. Myself, I was there with my mother, my two sisters, and like I said, the shelling, the bombings, and everything was constant. I was so
Yeah.
scared. I would shake, my stomach would bubble, I would pace back and forth, and then eventually became
Couldn't
numb.
imagine. Yeah. Couldn't imagine, man.
Yeah. So now let's during the genocide went into hiding. Neighbors came, they bundled us up, and they smuggled us over to another neighbor's house. And this was very common. A lot of people who survived were actually protected by their own neighbors. And that's how a lot of the survivors of the genocide actually made it. The war kept coming. There were these militias that were killing people and throwing bodies like out in the streets. They were also the rebels who would come into the neighborhood and commit these atrocities. Sometimes, like, the yard would have like limbs and boots and things like that. And it became so insecure. The house we were in ended up getting bombed, and the neighbor hired a pickup truck to take us away from the city of Kigali to northwest Rwanda near Congo, so that we can hopefully be safer from the fighting and the atrocities, the massacres that were taking place. During that travel, we kept getting stopped at checkpoints, threatened to be killed, at times taken out of the vehicle, shown dead bodies, and then eventually, every time somebody would intervene and stop the killing. At one of the checkpoints, they didn't take everybody out. They selected me and my mother.
Right.
They put me on one side of the street, they put my mother on the other side of the street, and this guy looked me in the eyes and he goes, "Say goodbye to life." I remember he was wearing like a blue tracksuit, um, yeah, sweatsuit, and then they take us away from the street, take us to this little bamboo forest. There was a carpentry there, and at this carpentry, um, a group of neighbors. I don't know these people. I wouldn't have recognized them even 2 or 3 hours after I seen those people. They were total strangers. They ran up, women, children, older men, and they started yelling at these guys, saying, "Hey, don't kill them! Leave them alone! Stop killing people!" And they were pleading and yelling and asking for us not to be killed.
Mm.
The guys, this militia that was looking to kill, that selected us to kill us,
Hmm.
looked at us and they go talk to those people, borrow some shovels and hoes, and dig your own graves because we need to bury you after we kill you.
Mm.
Um, I remember in that place also when we got pulled off the truck and they ordered the truck to leave, I was really scared. I
Yeah.
was so scared. I remember I was shaking. I was back to that very beginning when the bombings started and my stomach was bubbling. But then eventually I became numb.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point my mother asking me if I was scared, but at that point I had already become numb. I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was already at the point of like I'm already dead at this
Oh man.
point. Now the driver came back, and he came back twice, both times with a man. And so there were two men who started pleading for us. We got to this place, it was mid-afternoon. It was pitch black when one of the two men told the this group of this militia that was about to kill us, told them, "You know what, this boy and his mother are not going to make it 5 miles from here. Let somebody else kill them."
Yeah.
And somehow they agreed to that. We proceeded to leave this place. We took shelter in another family's house. The family was a mother, a father, and two children, three-bedroom house. There was six of us that went. So it was me, my mother, sorry, five. It's me, my mother, my two sisters, and a cousin. We were the first to get into this house, and they kept taking in more and more people. And after a few months, there was like more than 30 people in this house, all crammed up in there, taking shelter from the war and the genocide that was taking place. And eventually, that group that started the war from Uganda
Yeah.
kept came bombing and shooting and killing people with all kind of weapons, including hand weapons. And we all evacuated and fled into the Congo. And we became homeless, but I was relieved to be being homeless actually was a relief for me versus being inside of Rwanda and basically
Right.
that any day I could get killed. In the Congo, I was under different custody.
Yeah.
So we camped out in the Congo. It was horrible conditions. The possessions we had, me and my mother and my two sisters, was a cup, a spoon, a pot, and a plate. Those were the four belongings. And we would borrow little cans to go and get water. The water was from a lake. The lake
Mm.
was it was basically um, it was toxic
Yeah.
because there were animals bathing in it. There were dead bodies in it. My sister went to get water from that lake. She used the bucket. When she pulled out the bucket, there was a head in that.
Oh no.
Uh, so it was terrible, but it was the only
Yeah.
source of drinking water, bathing water, and cooking water. We started catching disease, cholera. Um, Thankfully, me and my siblings survived it. We were rescued out of the Congo by an American aid worker who took us to Uganda. And the reason and the way that happened is because prior to the genocide, actually 2 years before the genocide, my father got a scholarship to study in Nashville at Meharry Medical College. And when he was about to finish, that's when the genocide started, and so he was stuck out of there, not knowing what's happening with us for months. Eventually, when we got into the Congo, my mother was able to send a fax to the
Yeah.
school, and they were like, "Hey, we don't recognize this language on these facts." And they asked him, and he instantly recognized my mother's handwriting. She has a very distinct
Yeah.
handwriting, and so that's how he knew we were alive. And he sent for us. They found us camped up in this place in Congo, in Goma, and they took us to Uganda. Our visa application to come to the US was denied. And we stayed for a year until in between that. So we had gone from Rwanda to Congo to Uganda. And then finally in Kenya is when my father was able to get his asylum and bring us over to the US. And just to tie this to what is actually happening, it's not just an interesting story. This is
Right.
a story of just, African tribalism and things like that, the way that it
Right.
is presented. The
Yeah.
war itself is a war to control resources. And that brings us to where me and you connect, especially on
Okay.
how we connect these dots.
Yeah.
That war itself was in order to access the resources in the Congo, because 2 years later, both Congo and Uganda, remember Uganda was the invader of Rwanda, they both
Right.
invaded Congo, and they removed a long-term serving dictator who actually was an ally of the US, but he was too old. He actually, if for anybody that follows, there is someone known as a big time hero on the continent of Africa and in the African diaspora, Patrice Lumumba, was assassinated. He was the first prime minister of Congo. He was assassinated by that president. And that president actually now, declassified information have shown that both Belgium and the CIA were both involved in the assassination. Now, the guy becomes a big time, like an ally of the US. And he was very close with multiple presidents in the US. And then eventually it was time to replace him. And so they brought in the guy in Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, and the guy in Rwanda, Paul Kagame. And now they control the resources in the Congo. So I want to stop there.
Yeah.
The war itself is a war to control resources. A
And it's
war
and
to
it's foreign actors that are funding these different militias. Is that accurate?
Correct. The both all of the involved countries, Rwanda and Uganda are some of the poorest countries in the world.
Yeah.
They do not manufacture any weapons, but they have sophisticated weapons. In fact, in recent times, when Rwanda took over some of the major towns in Congo, they had things like GPS jamming technology. I mean, they use drones, they use all of these things, and some of the funding
Yeah.
for Rwanda and even training and things like that, we, the taxpayers here in America, pay for it because the US is one of the biggest donors to the government of Rwanda and of Uganda, also provide training. And in recent times, there has been sanctions and things like that. However, the arming, the support, both in terms of money and in terms of training and things like that, the US has been a big ally. And I'm keeping it to the US, but there are other allies.
Yeah.
There is the UK, there is France, there is, a bunch of European Union countries. And even in Rwanda, during that war and the genocide, at the time, it was a proxy war where the US and the UK on one side were supporting the RPF to take over and turn it into um, and take it away from at the time where the government in Rwanda was an ally of France. So it was a proxy war between on the US and the UK on one side and France on the other side, and both were being armed by these foreign actors. And then in return, because a lot of people
Right.
ask, why would they do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
In
What are they after?
return,
Right.
if there's access to resources, cheap resources.
Hmm.
And very interestingly, there are American, European, and a lot of Canadian companies that are involved. It's mining. When it comes to
Yeah.
mining, it's a big thing. The Congo in that region, and the Congo has pretty much all the resources or most of the resources. Anything to do with the revolution, the
Yeah.
chips in the cell phones and the electronics that we use, they need coltan. That's a resource found. 60 to 80% of deposits are in the Congo.
How much
The,
how much minerals or the value of the minerals is the Congo and Rwanda and all that setting on?
the Congo alone is sitting on an estimated $24 trillion worth of natural resources, mostly minerals.
Right. And
And that's
everybody that's in the AI race right now, all the countries, they're
boom.
after that. Is that accurate?
Boom,
Okay.
boom, boom. The current the AI the arms race for critical minerals to power the AI data centers and the critical minerals that are needed for the green revolution. And I put it in quotes because there is a green revolution in certain parts of the world, but there's also, in order to turn green on one side of the world, it's polluting another side of the world. But the resources that are needed for those are a lot of them are found in the Congo,
Yeah.
in that region. And that's why these wars and these occupations and genocides continue to take place. They are fueled by the appetite for resources. And as you said, the question was, how does it, how much of the resources are used in this AI race? All these AI data centers that are popping up, they require these critical minerals.
Yeah.
Also,
And I think if I did this correct, there's cobalt, nickel, copper, lithium,
yep,
tungsten. Am I missing anything?
tin, tungsten,
Yeah.
tin.
Yeah.
There's gold, and lithium, which is big for
Yeah.
electric vehicle batteries.
And if you're watching any of the wars like in the Ukraine and Iran,
Mhm.
drones are becoming a big, huge factor in those military
That's
strategies, and a
that's right.
lot of those are going to be coming. They're going to need these minerals as well. So we have new
Correct.
weapons, we have data centers
Hmm.
to help with the AI. All of those flock cameras, all of this stuff is needing these minerals uh, for
Yeah.
those chips and the technology that's going into all this stuff. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the key that you mentioned the mineral. One of the key minerals for some of the military technologies is tungsten,
Yes.
and that's one that is it's got the quality, from my understanding and research, the quality of what there is in the Congo is one of the better. Like, does not have a lot of mix. I don't want to get too
Well, I'll tell you,
chemistry or
I'll break it
chemical.
down. Here's what I
Yeah.
know about tungsten from throwing darts.
Uh-huh.
Darts are made from tungsten, and the reason why is because it's very dense, but it's very light. And
Right.
so it works well for a dart, but I'm sure it works well for other applications as well. So, but that's what I know about tungsten
But,
just from throwing
but
darts.
there you go. Well, it's
Yeah,
very useful in weapons manufacturing also.
yeah,
And so, yeah, there is that's the big thing. And then you mentioned Iran and Ukraine. The Iran war, last year in 2025, when it started, the talk was, we want to stop their acquisition of uranium.
yeah,
There's also some amount of uranium that's found in the Congo. I mean, it's not doesn't have the largest deposits. At least it's not known to have the largest deposits as some of the countries in Central and West Asia, and also Canada and one of the West African countries, Niger or Niger. But the uranium that was used in the bombs used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic bombs, were actually, that uranium was out of the Congo. Um, so back to connecting it to us here,
yeah,
the communities, and even, actually, let me just ask, for your district, District
yeah.
11, are there any plans to bring about data centers in
Oh,
the district, and what are the people's reactions, and do the people actually understand like what data centers do to communities, in terms of the impact, in terms of pollution, in terms of water consumption and energy consumption and things like that.
man, you hit the hot button topic right now in the CD11, especially in Marietta. Marietta just against protest and against the people's wishes, they voted, I believe, 5-2 to approve a data center that's going to be coming in. I know that Bartow has approved a 12 building, huge campus. Like, people don't understand the size of these things. It's like huge malls
Yeah.
that are going up. A lot of people might think of like a storage container or like a transfer truck container, and that's the data center. No. We're talking
Yeah.
massive buildings that are going to take a lot of resources,
Yeah.
and then the generators that they have to use for backup is like having transfer trucks just stand there and turn the motor on and just let them run. So yeah, the people. My understanding of the people's not, and this is a bipartisan thing. Nobody
Mhm.
wants their drinking water polluted, their air polluted. Nobody wants to live
Yeah.
near these noisy things,
The noise pollution. Yeah.
right? And
There's
and and the weird thing is these things are all going up. They're trying to ram them down everybody's throat, and I just don't know that we have the resources to even support them, right? I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the activity in the Congo and
Mhm.
Rwanda and even in Venezuela and Greenland, right? I think they're setting on minerals as well, and
Yeah.
and they don't have all of these. There's a shortage on those chips, so we're
Right.
trying to
Right.
build these big buildings, and we might not even be able to get them up and operational. Not to mention, I know that there's we're spending taxpayer money to help with the utility shortage, right?
That's
We're
right.
trying to build more power plants and more power lines and all those things, but that's going to take time to build. And if the data centers get built before all that stuff's in place, we could have rolling outages. We could have, there's all
Mhm.
kinds of things and issues that could come about. So right now, everybody in the district is, if they're not wanting a right out ban on data centers, they're at least wanting moratoriums to
Mhm.
pause and to investigate, what's going on with the
Yeah.
dangers of data centers.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, it does touch like the bottom line of the people in the
Yeah,
communities that have these data centers, because the water bill is gonna go up.
yeah,
The electric bills go up. I've been in communities in North Dakota and Minnesota, in places like that, where these data centers, like, as they roll them out, they're adding like 10, 15% to their electric bills. And
right.
that's probably going to continue growing, because, the water that's used in the data centers it's not recycled
Yeah,
to be reused. If you use it, it's polluted. Um, the other piece, as you said, there is a shortage. I think we've gotten a preview of what we're going to see with some of these, because I think they're building way too many anyway to begin with. But
yeah,
um, but we're seeing this with even with AI, just the arms race in AI, where, for example, there was like, I believe it was like $500 billion investment into AI in the US, and then China turned around and did it for like 5 million, or somebody in China did it for 5 million for something that was that expensive in the
yeah,
US. And in some cases, there are a lot of news and a lot of reports on just like the AI bubble bursting. So
yeah,
in order to make the bubble work, these resources are needed, and that's why places like the Congo, and like you said, these wars in the Ukraine, down in Venezuela, um, and other places that actually where there are wars, but we are unaware that
right.
there are wars in these
Yeah,
places, and that our tax dollars are funding those wars.
yeah,
This is it's an arms race for these critical minerals, and the way that is happening is, it really is not. in the favor of any of the people, whether it's the people here or the people in those countries, including the Rwanda and the Congo and in the region. We call it the Great Lakes region
Yeah.
of Africa. There is a Great Lakes region here
Yeah.
in the U.S. that every time I talk about the Great Lakes, they're like, "Who are you talking about? You're talking about up north?" I'm like, "No, this is in Central Africa, Central and East Africa." Yeah,
Well, I tell everybody, I do believe AI is probably going to be a necessary evil in the future, but that doesn't mean
yeah,
data centers are. I don't
right.
believe that data centers are necessary in the future. And if we get these big 12 building, campuses built, and then the
Hmm.
technology advances to where those kind of buildings aren't necessary,
Yeah,
then what are we doing with this paperweight?
that's right.
It's already been built, it's already been invested in. And the other thing is, these companies are owned by billionaires and a
Right.
trillionaire. you
Hmm.
know why are we supporting these industries?
Right. And they're getting
Right.
tax breaks to actually bring them into the communities.
Yeah.
And there was a time not long ago where you had to have a device or everything. You have to have a camera, a camcorder, a radio, and so many
That's right.
different things. Now you have them all in one thing,
That's right.
and that's likely going to happen even with these data centers. The other thing is
Yeah.
like the way they're advertised as bringing jobs and things like that. When they're being built, it is true, and maybe you can speak to this also. But when they're being built, there are a lot of work for electricians and
That's right.
technical people to get them built.
Yeah.
But once they're built,
That's right.
they're not
Yeah.
like you're not getting an
They're
influx of jobs.
temporary. It's
Mhm.
temporary work jobs.
Yeah,
you know and those jobs could last a year or two. We're talking 12 building campuses, but it's not the jobs that everybody's thinking. It's not going to be sustainable. you
yeah.
know and then
Most
when they
people
leave,
in the
it's
go ahead, go
yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say most people in the community also don't have the skills to like work on getting them up.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
once they're built, I mean, maybe 80 jobs, 100 jobs, something like that.
Which, like you said, a lot of people in the CD11 may not have those kind of skills, so they're really not creating any jobs because they're just going to have to bring people into the CD11 to do those jobs.
Yeah,
So it may not create any jobs at all. That's another reason why we need to do a moratorium and actually investigate and research this stuff, because we don't know what the pluses and minuses are going to be. And I think that's really the big problem that everybody has right now, is that it feels like this is being crammed down our throat. If it's really for our best interest and it's really going to help these communities, then why are we not being as transparent
yeah,
as we should be?
yeah. Right.
Why are NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, having to be signed just to even discuss having this come into your community? There's a lot of things that are going on with the data centers, but I don't want to keep you. You and I could talk
Yeah,
for
yeah,
hours and hours and hours, and I really appreciate you coming on and
yeah,
being here. But it. I wanted to bring you on because I wanted people to put a face to what's actually happening when we talk about people who are here on asylums,
right. Hmm.
and here in that kind of capacity, but to understand what you went through to get here, and then
Yeah,
to see what effects our foreign policy does have when we are trying to support an industry, what it's having on the people around the world in those communities that are sitting on these resources that everybody else wants, you know,
yeah,
and the displacement and the genocide that's coming along with that. So I
yeah,
really appreciate. Well, one, I'm so grateful and thankful that you are here with us, Bud.
yeah.
And I really appreciate you showing up and sharing your story with me.
But thank you. I do want to. There's a point you just made that I want to maybe add a little bit of clarity to.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I never thought that I would live in another country. I never even thought of other countries. In fact, I thought everybody was Rwandan. I thought Bob Marley was Rwandan. I thought, Muhammad Ali back here, I thought he was Rwandan. I
Yeah.
thought, Michael Jordan was Rwandan. Everybody was Rwandan to me. And I knew there was a part of Rwanda that had white people called Europe. And they spoke Kinyarwanda with a very heavy accent.
Yeah.
The only, I never really thought that I would live in another country. Now, had the U.S. not and in the UK and France not got involved and supported these militias and invasions and wars, and I ended up displaced, I wouldn't be in the U.S. So for those who don't want people coming to the U.S., maybe take a stand against war at a minimum, and take a stand on U.S. foreign policy. That is going to help. I'm not against immigration personally. However, if anybody is against immigration, maybe start with stopping the invasions. Stop, grabbing resources from these places and do clean business with them. Stop the billionaires from taking over basically the world and destroying the earth in ways that then has people getting displaced, and we're actually footing the bill for displacing the people, and then they end up in a place where you do not want them. So I just wanted to make that point and make it clear.
Talking about some common sense. It's welcome here, buddy. We like the common sense here. Hey, before we get out of here, man, I want you to be able to plug. He's got a great book that I have an autographed copy of.
Yeah.
It's called Survivor Uncensored.
Yes.
100 plus testimonies from survivors of the Rwanda genocide, as well as pre and post genocide Rwanda, inspiring stories of resilience and humanity. And he is one of the authors of that. And I have read his chapter. It is amazing. He gave us a little summary today. He's able to go into a lot more detail in his book. And I advise you to pick it up and not just read his story, read all the stories. So you'll have a better understanding as to, when we make a decision here in DC, how it affects people all around the world, and why it's important that we have the right people in place making those decisions. And Claude, where can they find your book, bud?
Amazon. The book Survivors Uncensored. You can find it on Amazon. Yes, please go out and check out the book. Support the campaign for Chris Big Country. And we need people in DC that understand foreign policy and that also understand, that are in with the people. Because I love the comments you made about what to do with the data centers. It shows your stand with the people, and that you're saying it publicly. So that's what we need. District 11 in Georgia, go out, show up.
If people want you to come talk to them and tell them your story in person, is there a way that they can book you?
Yes.
What's your website?
Website is Aglan, A-G as in girl, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy.org. AGLAN.org.
Well, Claude, yet again, man, I'm so grateful that we are friends, and I'm so thankful that you came onto my show today.
Yes.
Maybe the next time it won't take so long, because as I said, you and I can talk a whole bunch about all of this stuff going on. So we'll give it more than 30 minutes the next time. But thank you, Claude, for coming. Thank everybody for tuning in. I'm going to spare you what I've got coming up. You can go to my website, electharden.com. See all the events that we have coming up. We definitely have more town halls coming and private events. And if you want to, you can go on the website and sign up for your own private Chris chat, and I'll come and chit chat with you and your family and your friends and your neighbors. And also, as much as I hate to ask for money, we have to ask for money. So you can go to the website. On the website, there's the donate button. It'll go right to my ActBlue account. Hook me up with a little bit, whatever you can. We'll go right back in to get my name out and my message out, and my man Claude's message out there. So we thank you for joining us today. We'll see you down the road. Thanks, Claude.
Yes. Show up and show out for Chris Big Country, and we want to see him in DC
together.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks, Claude.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah! November coming. Georgia 11. If you're tired of the same old politics, this one right here for you. Chris Harden! Vote Chris Harden! Put the people first. Working class families know the struggle hurts. Not the politics, not the party game. Just real solutions that'll make a real change.